So I'm going to talk first about the loose, kind of scared money player who I've depicted in the bottom right here with a sort of clip art of a guy confusedly looking at some poker hands and feeling nervous. So loose, scared money players, first off, their tendencies in general are to see a lot of flops. Because they're scared money, they don't like to necessarily get their money in really light. They're not someone you'd necessarily call a calling station. They're not people who you're really, really looking forward to playing with in this kind of like drooling over their stack kind of a way, but definitely people you like to have at the table. They're typically very soft opponents. They play a lot of small pots. You'll find these sort of loose, passive, weak players trying to get to showdown pretty cheaply, folding when the action gets too rough, but often seeing flops and seeing turns, things like that. You will find quite a few players like this during good hours on weekends and in the lower stakes games and stuff like that. If you do play in home games, you'll find a lot of people like this. If you play around the world, you won't find as many because people gravitate towards more aggressive styles outside of America. But if you are American, you'll find quite a few people who play in this category. One thing that these kind of loose, scared money players do is that they limp in pre-flop and then just fold when the pre-flop raise is a little bit too large, which can be a really useful tidbit of information to keep in mind. There are lots of categories of players who, if they do limp, their hands are so strong that of course they're not folding to many pre-flop raises up to like 10, 12, 15, even 20 big blinds. And then there are other categories of players who just don't fold because they don't care, and they're not here to fold. They're not here to play patiently and wait for hands. This type of player is in the middle, where they're not here to play patiently and wait for hands really, but if the action is too intense and the price is too steep, they're just going to go ahead and give it up. So they limp in a lot and then just fold the pre-flop raises that are a little too big. This type of player also tends to show when he makes a moderate laydown. That's what scared money players tend to do a fair amount, is because they know there's a part of them that knows that they feel weak and they feel like they're playing scared, but they try to justify their play by making it look like they know what they're doing, as a sort of form of cognitive dissonance. So instead of just folding and feeling like, man, I'm a wuss, they'll instead show that they're folding like second pair in this display of false confidence, like, I know that this is no good, and that's why I'm showing you that I'm laying it down. So if you see someone who is playing a little bit loose and you're not really sure where he stands because you don't have that many hands on him yet, and then he shows that he folds like second pair or something that's at least a moderate hand that not everyone has an easy time letting go of, then you can pretty much peg him down into this category of someone who's definitely loose, but probably is pretty scared of money in front of him. These type of players also tend to employ block bets far too often, because they like to do things like find out where they're at, set their own price, etc. They like to lead out, bet small, make small raises, etc. With hands where they really don't want to play a huge pot or get all in. And so they kind of invite you to, quote, show them that they're beat and then allow them to make a good fold before they get stacked. Again, like someone who's block betting a fair amount is almost always going to be scared money. That kind of person is not always loose. There are definitely some kind of tighter scared money guys who block bet a lot. But that is, blocker bets are typically a dead giveaway of someone who is scared money. Not always. They can be really useful in the arsenal of certain smarter, decent players. People who are kind of trying to figure you out, or actually have really good reason to make a blocker bet given their credibility and history and stuff like that. But for the most part, they're a big sign of scared money. So quick fix techniques that you can employ to combat these kinds of players and make sure you're exploiting them optimally. First one is just very basic, something you should be really used to as an online player, coming from an online background, especially if you've been playing for a few years, from like 2004 2005, 2006, and forward, when you've gotten used to some really soft games with a lot of passive play, just to isolate and barrel. This type of person limps in, you raise, and then just keep betting until they decide that the price is too much and they just fold. It's that whole like classic movie scene, quote, too rich for my blood kind of concept, that you're trying to force that person to have that feeling and then give their hand up.